Today, I'm delighted to have with me Mollie Eliasof. She is a counselor and therapist working with couples, and she's based in New York City. Oh, Mollie, I'm so thrilled I met you because you have got such a lovely energy, and it's delighted to speak to somebody across the other side of the world. So come and tell the listeners more about you, Mollie.
I would love to. First of all, I'm so excited that we're connecting and we're getting to talk and we're getting to share this conversation with so many people. I think, from connecting with you immediately, we clearly had this passion for helping couples and relationships thrive more. And you're just an amazing individual and human being. So it's really lovely to be able to be doing this and sharing information. So I am a couples therapist based in New York City and a relationship coach online. I try and provide really concrete information so that people can have more of a deep connection faster. And I specifically really help highly ambitious people and couples who are juggling the intensity of workload and really wanting to have passion and fulfillment and sustainability in their love.
That's great, because what I notice so much with people is that they are trying to juggle their career, they're trying to juggle their relationships, but one or other will get neglected. And it's more likely with the people that I work with that it's the relationship that got neglected.
Yes.
So how do you do this?
Yes, I love this question. It's so good. It's so good because I think often the advice is slow one of them down. And I think it's the biggest thing I am against in terms of advice, because I think there's a way for us to have it all. But it's really about figuring out how to optimize everything in our life. So if you're really interested in business, you learn very early on, for your business to be most efficient, you have to optimize your systems. If you're in marketing and social media management, you learn, how do I make a formula and a system so that I can optimize that process? And the place where I feel like that conversation is missing is in relationships. So I think when you're highly ambitious and you really want to move like a tiger, like a cheetah right through life and be as sleek as possible, there are ways to do that in your romantic relationship as well. And one of the biggest heartbreaks for me is listening to an extremely ambitious couple get slowed down because they spent so much time fighting when they had a whole vacation to just cuddle.
Yes, and that's what happens, isn't it? That they because they're not getting what they want in the relationship, they'll pick on those things that get in the way, and they keep replaying it. If only you did that. You don't. I know you. You always pick up on your laptop every evening after work, and I'm fed up with it. And they keep replaying that same message. So the other person just switches off. Well, you're just nagging, and why the hell should I listen to you? Because you've got nothing else to say, and all you ever do when you communicate with me is grumble.
Absolutely, right? And so one of the things I can hear in what you're saying, and what I also love to teach, is really I statements, right? To go back to this idea. So one of the tricks that I love to talk about in terms of optimizing your relationship is being able to say an I statement for your needs, rather than the you statement, which is what you were just modeling, right? Because you statements, like you just beautifully depicted, make your partner feel defensive, attacked, criticized, and they shut down. And I think one of the keys that people forget all the time that I love sharing is that everyone in a relationship wants to be a winner. No one wants to be a loser, right? And so everyone feels better when they get to feel like they meet their partner's needs rather than disappointing and failing. So I know that it becomes really confusing for people, or difficult for people, to build out the skill of saying, I need X, Y, and Z, rather than going to, I think what's a little bit easier, because it comes from, I think, the place of like emotion of, you don't give me this, you're not doing enough for me. But once you get that skill under your belt of the I need, it becomes easier for your partner to feel like a winner, and for you to not have to be so repetitive too. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it, isn't it? And actually asking for what you need. That's the other one. You should know, etc. What? Yeah, when you start back, oh, it's that I can imagine this old couple, in a bar
Uh-huh.
or restaurant. He goes to get a drink because he knows what she wants. And then when he brings back the drink and she said, but I didn't want that. I didn't want a gin and tonic. I wanted a rum and coke. And he
Yes.
says, but that's what you always have. Well, hang on a minute. One's reading one person's mind and the other one is not saying what they want.
Yes. Yes. And I think that skill of being able to express one's needs is also something that I don't think we teach enough, which is why I'm so passionate about talking about it. I think that many, especially women, but many of us are taught that to think about your own needs is to be selfish, is to not to be falling into your role of being caretaker, thoughtful, and attending to others above you. I know that's a generalization for gender. I think it goes for everyone. I think the challenge becomes practicing the skill of what do I need? Because when I work with a couple in that exact scenario and I ask the person who said, I just wish you knew, what did you need there? Often I get confusion. They're not so sure. And I think it is it's a lot to ask to stop and be that reflective and investigate what's going to make you feel, I don't even want to just say the word good, but fulfilled, because that becomes the key for your partner to be able to unlock and be able to fully continue to satisfying you and then getting your needs met in return.
Yes. And then how many times do you hear that phrase, I just want to be happy?
Yes. 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 Yes, and I agree with your shrug. I agree. What does that mean? And what I also love saying all the time is, I don't have to live your life. Anyone I work with, I don't have to live your life. Your version of what happiness is to you, what fulfillment is to you, is so different than what I might think of or your partner might think of. And the clearer we can get with knowing what this fantasy version of our lives is and being able to communicate and articulate that to the people who matter the most in our lives, the more we're going to be able to manifest that, and our team, the people we have around us, are going to be able to support that and then work towards that with us.
Yeah, I would so agree with you. And it is, sometimes people don't know what they want. They just, I want to be happy. As well, what does happiness look like? And then sometimes they can't even verbalize that because they've never really thought about it, or maybe they've seen that fantasy couple in the TV ad or that reality program where the couple just all seems to go flow without any problems, and they have this fantasy of what they think it should be like, but they're not really thinking about what it is they want.
Yep, 100%. And as someone who works with a lot of people in the limelight, you start to realize that everyone is the same. Everyone is a person. It doesn't matter how glowy it is or how picture wrapped up perfect it is. Everyone is just a person trying to figure out their own needs and have them met. And so idealizing other couples, I think, is such a hazardous thing we do. Rather than looking for an attribute we admire in another relationship and then really wanting to include that into our own relationship. I think that's the distinction there, right? So like figuring out our own needs and then pulling in what we respect and admire rather than what we imagine as all inclusive of perfect.
Yeah. And one of the exercises that I encourage people generally to do is, what is it that what are your core beliefs and values? What is it you want in your life? What is it that is important? What is it, is it honesty? Is it adventure? Is it financial security? What is it? What is it you want in your life? And then you can find somebody who meets along a person who's got similar attributes and longings and so on. You know, if you are somebody who's really adventurous and loves to travel the world, and the partner you're with says, I don't want to move out of this, I don't want to move out of this street, out of this town, out of this place, I want to be here, and that's like my safety space, that you're going to have problems in the future.
Yes.
How many people talk about that? You know,
Yes.
the pheromones start rushing around and the rest of it, you just fantasize and you manage this picture of what you believe that other person wants. You don't even ask them.
I love this so much because I think it comes back to the way that, you know, I kind of started talking about optimization in a relationship. You know, I think that two things. One, we don't always, you know, talk about these things or really know them 100% about ourselves, and then get frustrated when there's a misalignment. And I think the other thing is we're constantly changing. So these things aren't a one-time reflection where it's an automatic truth for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
It keeps shifting and changing. So continuously having these conversations is essential, but also helps you optimize the connection. So to go way back to your earlier question of how does a couple that's really high powered balance it all, I started to think, and stay with me for a second, I know this might not interest everyone, but you know, I was starting to think about how businesses decide value sets, right? So what Google values for their employees might be really different than an older, more traditional company, right? Over the years, when we were all in office, they had built out, you know, pits for people to hang out and relax and unwind, where older corporate settings really believed in a more conservative, functional approach. It doesn't mean one was right or wrong. It was a different value set. And to optimize the way that company worked made it so that everyone who got employed there had to buy into that, had to know that that was the value there and that they were agreeing to join that. Now, all of that translates into our relationship, right? Because if we can define our value set as individuals, we can share that with our partner and then evolve what the couple's value sets are so we can optimize how we're going on vacation, what do we like to do for fun, what we want to do with our finances, what are our big life goals, what are we working towards for our time and energy. And so this becomes an easier, faster conversation when we're able to get down to that optimization early on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got this high-powered couple,
yes,
who want it all, but they really don't have the time or the space for it all because their lives are complete. I mean, I'm sure you have similar couples to me. So they have high-powered jobs, they have children who have got their own social lives and expectations, and maybe extended family who need attention as well. They've got their own hobbies and interests. How do they, because this is the thing, right, how do you make time for each other? Because that's the thing, they say, well, we can't.
Ooh, yeah. You know, again, I think how do we get as creative as possible in how we're optimizing our time? So I really don't want people to buy into this idea of I must sacrifice something. I must sacrifice my relationship, or I must sacrifice my professional development and ambition, which is heartbreaking, either one to me. The question becomes, how do we get really creative about utilizing our time most efficiently? So for example, and I love thinking about this moment, if you and your partner, let me say it that way, if you and your partner both get up around the same time, and I know not everyone does this, right? And they're at the, you know, area where you have a coffee pot, let's say, and you're deciding to pour that coffee, and there's just that moment where both of you need to take a minute to pour your cup, and you're standing there potentially, right? That moment could be a moment where you turn and go, good morning. It's so special to see your face right now. Or even just throw them a wink. Now, this small moment may seem like nothing, but it's very different than just going, good morning. You're optimizing that connection and that ability to get closer to one another in seconds in a way that can boost the way you feel towards one another and give that connection still a lot of strength as you go on the rest of your day to really pursue your ambition, your interest, or your connection with the rest of your family.
Definitely. because that peck on the cheek or I love you becomes routine. It
Yes.
doesn't, the connection isn't there. As
Yes.
you say, what does it take for the person in your life to look at you in the eye, look at your face and say, wow, I love the way you smile. I love the color of your eyes. You know, what does it take? Because then you are connected, even for those few seconds. That's what gets lost.
Absolutely. And obviously I'm right there with you. You know, we're super aligned on this. We're both having total buy-in for this. But this is what I mean when I say optimize, right? Because that's the same amount of time. It's what you're choosing to do with it that can be the game changer. So, you know, I brought up earlier when a couple goes on vacation and spends the time fighting, it's such a waste of time and satisfaction for them both. Now, I'm not saying that things that are frustrating don't come up in life. And that's, I think, a positive thing. We should all have emotions that range in our lives, and that's healthy, in my view, at least. Being able to talk about that frustration, explore it in a way that's optimized is very different than spending days not talking together, especially when you have the treat of nothing else but the two of you on some beautiful tropical island, at least in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are couples that say, well, we'll wait till we go on holiday and we're going to solve it all. Or we go on holiday and we're going to solve our relationship. But they're missing it because it's like an investment account. You have to keep feeding that investment. You have to keep putting the pennies in. Or the cents in your case. You have to keep putting those coins in. And I read something the other day and I just thought this says it so eloquently, that every time you put that in, you are enriching your relationship. But for every criticism, every bad comment, for every anger, whatever, you are depleting it. You are negating every one of those coins you invested.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this goes back to, you know, John and Julie Gottman, who are really prominent couples therapists, talk about it as the emotional savings bank, right? And they even talk about that when a couple is not fighting, when they're in a good place, the goal is 19-1, 19 positive things you say to your partner for every negative thing. So that when you get to a place where you're fighting and there's more of those negatives, you're not depleting as much of that savings account like you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yes. And for every, we need 5 positives, whether they're statements or gestures, to outweigh 1 negative. So because we hang on to the negatives, don't we? You know, that's the ones that make the imprint in our brains. So to override that or even make any dent in it, you need those 5 positives.
Yes, and that's for when you're fighting, that ratio, which I think people, you know, don't really understand how to include that when they're fighting, right? When we're angry, we want to throw those negatives, right? Like it's the easier thing to do for everyone. It's a human reaction, right? So it takes a lot of mental work. So when we're fighting to go, I have to say 5 positive things for every negative. Either I have to say less negative, or I have to be really creative about saying, I love the way that you take care of me in this way, but I'm also really frustrated that you're not helping in this way right now. That's a lot of work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that when couples are fighting, I think that what happens is it touches something that we've carried around with us forever.
Yeah.
And once it hits that spot, then it's nothing to do with the other person. It's our stuff, and we're going to defend ourselves like crazy.
Right.
And I think that is what happens in arguments, because there is that, well, I'm being criticized, or my mom said that about me, you said something similar, and now I feel I'm in that survival mode, I'm being attacked, and that's when I'm going to lash out to protect myself or defend myself.
Yes.
nothing about the argument. It's nothing about that person. It's what's going on for us.
Yes. And I think, someone brilliantly asked me a few weeks ago, do we teach our partners these things? Do we share these resources so our partners hear it too, if we're tuning in? And to me, the answer, I thought that was such a good question, because the answer is please. The more the two of you are aligned on why this is helpful and important, the more there's going to be buy-in. So when there is a fight, if you're both able to talk from I statements, both of you are going to be less likely to get in the state that you were just talking about, totally dysregulated, really on edge, in survival mode. Instead, you'll be able to just hear one another and therefore ideally attend to one another, because we all want to just feel seen, heard, and understood. That's it,
Yeah, yes. And I think that's what happens, isn't it? We stop hearing, we stop listening, we stop hearing, really hearing, because something's touched us, and we only latch onto that word, that sentiment, and then that's it, bang. And a number of times, I'm sure you've experienced it as well with clients, they say, well, we had this row. Well, what was it about? We can't even remember what the argument was about.
Right. Right. Well, I think, to go back to what you were saying earlier, fights are about so many things. It's about what's happening at the surface. It's about what went wrong or triggered the discussion. And then it's about what's happening underneath, which is really where you were going before, that we're in the survival mode, that it reminds us of really intense pains from childhood, from a last relationship, from a place where we were at our most raw and vulnerable. And now we're not just talking about that thing, that superficial thing that started it on the surface. And when I say superficial, I just mean on the surface, not lighthearted. Obviously, it means something to you. And you're also talking about these deep feelings. So I think when we ask that question, it's hard for anyone to put that all together in a conscious state. So much of that happens in the unconscious.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes it's something as little as you're not listening to me. I've had couples in front of me they're arguing, but actually sitting where I am, they're agreeing with each other, but they're not hearing the words. All they're hearing is, you're not listening to me. I've got a point to make, and I'm not being heard. And once we kind of, let's stop a minute. And this is what I heard you say, and this is what I heard you say. And they kind of, so actually, you're agreeing on the same point? Well, yeah. And it's quite intriguing when you're the fly on the wall, as I'm sure you find, Mollie, that you sit there and you say, this is really interesting, because this isn't what the argument is about, is it? It's about either being taken for granted, it's either being not heard, it's being neglected. That, I just think the pink and fluffy stuff is, you haven't put you haven't put your shoes away, and then the argument will start. But actually what it is, what's really going on underneath is, you're taking me for granted.
Right.
And I think that's when that's where the magic for me happens, is when we start acknowledging, what is it that's really bugging you? What is it that the pain you're really feeling?
Yep. And I'm with you 1,000%. And, something I used to say earlier on in my career, and I still feel, I don't think I say it as often, is my goal is with every couple I work with is that they don't need me. The idea is that they learn all of these skills so that they're prompting themselves these questions, where they're able to go, what am I saying underneath that? I'm frustrated that the shoes aren't putting away, but why is that really distressing me? And then be able to deliver that to their partner, all within themselves. And this is part of what I mean when I come back to optimization. If you can be able to see how this is outlined, I have a trigger of a thought and feeling, I'm going to have a feeling underneath it, and then I'm going to need to communicate that in a way that my partner hears me, not attacking, not defensive, but in that straightforward outline, they're going to be able to respond to that with a way that could attend to me rather than moving away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think in that, that example you gave, I gave, is about the shoes. Why am I so frustrated that she doesn't put their shoes away?
Yeah.
What is it for me? Why am I upset about it? What's going on in my mind? What is it? Is it that I like the house tidy? Is it that I feel that you don't respect me? Is it that I feel I'm doing all the housework? It's finding what is it that touches us, the I, before
Yes.
we flesh out the other person.
Yes. Yes. And being able to deliver it in a way that they can receive it, right? So I'm feeling really frustrated that yet again, the shoes are not put away. And every time I bring it up, I feel like I'm begging to be seen, heard, and understood. How much I'm trying in this house, how much I'm important, how much I want to be valued. And every time it doesn't happen, I feel less valued, less essential, less cared about. Whoa, if your partner is able to hear it that way, they may come towards you with so much more compassion and empathy. And again, if we go back to this concept that everyone in a relationship wants to be a winner, your partner is going to more likely go, okay, how do I win again? How do I understand how to not make you feel that way? It's tricky though.
It is tricky. Nobody says it's easy.
Well, and that's why we like to support people, you know. Again, the goal is to not need me, but to always know that people like us are available to you. So you can build these skills, master these skills. And like everyone else I've ever studied in anything who is exceptional, whether that's my love of dance or in the world of therapy or in the world of business, you learn that the best of the best are constant students. That's what they're committed to. So we are always here to help you build the skills to help you flourish, but also to support you to maintain them. And that's what I love to do, is watch people get to that maintenance space and call me every so often to go, you know, we've been struggling lately, but the last few months were fantastic. And then I know I've won, you know, then I know I've helped, and that's the best.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Yeah. So it's been lovely talking to you today, Mollie. I know we could talk for ages, I'm sure. There's so many things that we could share with our listeners. But what is the one thing that the listeners could take away with them today?
Yes, great question. Take time to optimize your time. Really think about what is leading to stagnancy in the way that two of you are connecting, and then try and find resources to help you get unstuck in those spaces. So if that's endless fighting or not talking or cyclical fights that seem to not really change, if you're not interested in talking to someone directly, like a service provider, like either one of us lovely people here on this podcast, there's also podcasts to listen to. We are both passionate about giving this information away for free. You know, there are books to read, there are blog articles, there's so much that can help you get unstuck. Do yourself the favor of getting unstuck and not wasting time in life.
Yeah, life is too precious.
Too precious. We're learning that more than ever right now, right?
We are, aren't we? Right, absolutely. So I'm going to put all your details, all your contact details in the show notes, Mollie. But what if someone doesn't have that availability, if they can't get hold of that now, the easiest way of getting hold of you?
Absolutely. So following me on Instagram at my name, that's Mollie Elias, like Sam, OF like Frank, and DM me. Let me know you've heard this. Chat with me about what your questions are. I'm constantly trying to go on. Today I'm going on live to do Q&A live. I really just want to give this information away for free.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. So thank you so much. I've really loved today. And yeah, let's hope people do listen and they're hearing what it is that they really need.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. This was so great, and I hope we helped.